There's him now. She's not looking at me. Oh, she's all dressed up too. You're working today.
He's
the one that starts up.
So we're on air. Okay, Matthew, we got to go ahead and get started because we're on air.
We have to.
Yep, we have to start.
Minutes, because usually it takes minutes.
I'm calling this meeting to order. Mo, are we in compliance with Kansas Open Meeting Act?
Yes, we are. And before we start the roll call, I do have an announcement.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Diana Fairbanks was not reinstated in August, and I didn't realize that until today when we were going through the whole membership. She was called, and she knows that she wasn't reinstated, but she's got an EOI to get reinstated in the next several weeks. So she's on the docket or the agenda accidentally.
Okay. So, go ahead and do a roll call. Deborah Corrales.
Here.
Matthew Newbanks, that's me. Scott is running a couple of minutes late. He will be here later, though. Alice. Herman. Grant.
Yes.
Lyric.
Here.
Rosemary.
Here.
Lacey. Frankie.
Here.
All right. And vacant position for the second youth member. It appears that we do have a quorum today. At this time, we'll move to the citizens forum. Would any citizens like to speak? Nope. Okay. Introduction of board members. We have a couple new faces up here. Lyric, Rosemary, and Lacey. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Lyric. I don't know what you want.
Any experience with the shelter?
No, I'm just an animal lover.
Okay.
And care greatly about taking care of them properly.
Perfect. That's awesome. Glad to have you.
I'm Rosemary. I'm retired, and I also have interest in animals. We've had dogs and cats and rabbits, and I truly believe in taking care of pets and making sure that they have a place to play.
Perfect. And then
I believe this is Lacey.
Lacey.
Hi.
Sorry,
We were doing introductions.
Just doing an introduction. So if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Lacey Holton, I work for the state. That's where I was, so sorry about that. Had pets, grew up on a farm.
Perfect.
So.
Well, we're glad to have new members. Is there any community veterinarians here that would like to speak?
Yes. So I'm happy to be here. I am actually the hospital director at Town and Country Animal Hospital, and we just had a few comments. And yeah, like I said, I'm very happy to be here. I wanted to thank Monique for the invitation. This is our first time attending, and so we weren't entirely sure what to expect, but we were super grateful for the invite. We weren't completely aware that these meetings occurred and that we could come and kind of have a voice. And I'm not entirely sure the appropriate places to kind of bring feedback, and so we thought we would start here, and hopefully you can let me know if there's a better process or a way to bring up concerns or good feedback as well. So I just wanted to personally say a few things. Like I said, I've worked at Town and Country Animal Hospital for 26 years, so definitely an avid animal lover. We know animal welfare is very important, obviously to me personally. So our clinic does have a very diverse group of veterinarians on staff, and I'm very happy to have several of them here today. They all have their own perspective on animal welfare, but as a team, we're really fully committed in trying to support the animal shelter, in any way we can. That said, just some personal concerns in regards to working with the shelter. And definitely my intention isn't to criticize, but just offer some constructive feedback. And again, I'm not really sure if this is exactly the appropriate place, but wanted to kind of just have some voice. One, just some communication in regards to just kind of the community regarding shelter operations. As a veterinary clinic, we do receive a lot of calls from the public about shelter availability, changes in operations. For example, a few months ago, we had lots of clients, asking if the shelter had shut down. And so there was just some miscommunication, as far as, having to shut down for kennel cough or, different contagious diseases that is necessary. So just having a little bit more transparency maybe with the clinics so that we can support the shelter and allow to kind of make clear kind of communications with the clients and the public. Because sometimes, we would be able to clarify that and have the clients and the public kind of understand why the shelter has to shut down and a little bit more feedback for the public. Because I do feel that, there have been recent changes that, the shelter is in a difficult position and there is a lot of public, criticism. And we want to be able to try to provide some clarity with the public when it comes to those situations. And then just kind of some more communication about animal health concerns or outbreaks. It is definitely very beneficial to have community awareness if there is an outbreak, especially something that, could be affecting the pets at the shelter or the clients' pets. So just having a little bit more transparency, potentially if there's an outbreak or something concerning that's kind of happening at the shelter that could be affecting, the dog parks or different areas. And then the stray animal assistance. We get a lot of frequent calls about people that have picked up a stray animal or they've called the shelter trying to figure out what to do with stray animals. And so again, the shelter's availability to assist when people find stray animals. We get a lot of calls and concerns about that. So just, again, maybe a little bit more communication in regards of where the shelter's at as far as their ability. And then just some post-care communications. And so that may be more something, that I would just need to work with Monique about to kind of discussing when we see a pet and we send them back to the shelter for health concerns and they're receiving treatments, just maybe a way to kind of streamline that communication. If there's a better form or something that would work better for the shelter that we could maybe be filling out that would provide a little more detailed treatment plan or kind of follow-up care. We try to send the doctor's notes promptly, but sometimes, especially if there's an emergency or if we're working in a drop-off case, sometimes the doctors don't get those notes completed right away, and the pets return to the shelter. And so maybe if there's a form or something that might be a little more helpful that we could make sure goes with them when they go back. And I'm not sure what other clinics are doing or if there's something that's working well with other clinics. We would love to, be able to communicate and work with them the way that's going to work best for the shelter. And then additionally, I would like to know kind of the best way for us to provide feedback. Who should operational questions or concerns be directed to? Is this an appropriate place for concerns or feedback, or if there's another process that we should follow? And then finally, I just would like to express my personal gratitude to all of the shelter staff for their dedication and hard work. I can only imagine how challenging the job must be. And I know they're doing their best, and we truly just want to support them, and we really appreciate their efforts. Dr. Ostrom wasn't able to attend, but she did type up a letter, a 3-page letter, it's lengthy, that just covered, just in general some of the concerns that she had. And so I don't know if you guys want me to read it out loud. I did bring copies for everyone, but I'm happy to read it if you want me to.
We'll take copies and read, and if
Okay.
you want to read it, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah. And again, this is from Dr. Ostrom, and so, you know, I'm happy to read this. And like I said, she's worked with Town and Country for many years. So, but this is certainly just her personal perspective. I know that, you know, as a clinic, we do support some of the issues that she brings. Yeah, thank you. And certainly understand, you know, her point of view on some of these. So I'll just read her letter aloud now. So, to whom it may concern, as a veterinarian with over 20 years of experience serving this line of community, and as a former volunteer with the Friends of the Animal Shelter group, I would like to express my gratitude for the invitation to this meeting. While I am unable to attend in person, I am deeply invested in the well-being of our local animals and would like to share some of my concerns. I'd like to begin by emphasizing that the shelter has always been an indispensable resource for the community, operated by individuals with a passion both for the animals in their care and for the people who ultimately provide those animals loving homes. That said, I feel as if the times we live in, along with the unintended consequences of otherwise well-intended policies, have brought about a situation where the shelter and the community it supports have perhaps lost sight of the shelter's mission. First, I am troubled by the current policies surrounding the shelter's no-kill status, which I believe has led to the turning away of animals that are in need of care and support. It is essential to ensure that all animals in our community have access to safe shelter and resources rather than being left vulnerable. Per the salinaks.gov website, our facility is open admission and Saline County residents will not be turned away. It is a big help if you can call ahead when planning on surrendering a pet. In many cases, your pet will require vaccinations and/or spay-neuter surgery prior to adoption, and our facility does not have a veterinarian on staff. You can reduce the time your pet spends in one of our kennels if you call ahead and learn the best day and time to surrender. In many cases, this will be no more than 24 to 48 hours from the time you had intended. Salina Animal Services has developed guidelines to provide live outcomes for over 90% and does not euthanize animals due to space or length of stay. There must be a severe medical condition or a severe behavioral problems for an animal to be euthanized. While the spirit of this policy is admirable, the consequences of it have served to compromise the shelter's ability to fulfill its stated core mission to provide temporary shelter for stray, surrendered or homeless domestic pets, and to encourage reclaiming and adopting of stray pets. Over the past few years at Town and Country Animal Hospital, we have heard from multiple community members unable to find help for animals in need and being turned away from the shelter. I have personally spoken with several clients in difficult situations who feel their pet may pose a safety risk to the community and desperately need a safe place to relinquish these animals. Unfortunately, they have been turned away. While I cannot confirm if this is directly related to the no-kill policy, it is a concerning trend. Additionally, members of the community who have found stray animals are often instructed to hold or release them instead of being allowed to bring them to the shelter. Otherwise, experiencing significant life changes such as illness or relocation are unable to keep their pets and are left searching for a safe solution. The options of which are very few, if any, as shelters, rescues, and fosters are overwhelmed during these challenging financial times. Without a viable solution, these animals are at risk of being abandoned, which not only jeopardizes their welfare and potentially puts the community at risk, but may also lead to legal ramification for their owners, further compounding their already dire situation. I am also concerned about the shelter's response to outbreaks of communicable diseases. A proactive and swift approach is crucial to protect the health of both animals in the shelter and those in the broader community. Delays in response can have serious consequences, increasing the risk of widespread transmission among animals. For example, the recent panleukopenia outbreak, which has resulted in the death of many cats, has affected animals that pass through the shelter or foster homes before being adopted into the public. This issue has persisted for months. Additionally, there have been instances in the past where kittens exposed to or partially treated for ringworm spread this disease to their new owners, family, and friends. While some risk is unavoidable, the response in these cases has been lackluster. Furthermore, the dissolution of the Friends of the Animal Shelter group has significantly impacted volunteer engagement and foster support. Friends of the Animal Shelter has historically played a vital role in supporting the shelter through volunteer efforts, fostering, and community outreach, all of which are essential and supplement shelter resources and ensure animals receive the best possible care. According to the shelter's mission statement, the Salina Animal Shelter is trained to help educate the general public on responsible pet ownership and safety of all animals. All activities shall be in compliance with federal, state, and local laws and regulations and performed by humane and professional staff. In my opinion, the Friends of the Animal Shelter group was key in helping the shelter fulfill that mission. As a former volunteer with this organization, I witnessed a deep devotion of Friends of the Animal Shelter members to helping as many animals as possible. This group's dedication, along with support from outside programs like the PetSmart Rescue Wagon and financial grants, has been integral to the shelter's success over the past 15+ years. Although I'm not fully aware of the circumstances surrounding the Friends of the Animal Shelter's disbandment, I know how passionate and committed its members are to helping shelter animals, and it is clear that their decision to step back must have stemmed from a serious situation. Lastly, I would like to address the issue of breed-specific legislation, which, according to city officials, has led to half of the shelter's kennels indefinitely housing dozens of dogs subject to this ban. Not only does this place a strain on the shelter's resources and taxpayer dollars, but these dogs are also subject to housing conditions that are known to cause health and behavioral problems, making them less likely to be adopted should the shelter manage to find a group willing to take them in. As previously mentioned, this problem is compounded by the fact that the rescue groups and shelters that once took in these pets are no longer available. This current ban has been in place since 2010, and transferring banned animals out of the shelter has become a much more difficult task in recent years. According to Mayor Longbine in a KSN article this summer, city commissioners are hesitant to take action to lift the ban due to concerns that they could be held responsible if an injury occurs afterward. However, professional organizations such as the American Veterinary Medical Association and the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior have provided statements denouncing breed-specific legislation and its ineffectiveness in reducing dog bite incidences or severity. The American Bar Association also supports the repeal of breed-specific laws. In 2012, the ABA's House of Delegates passed a resolution urging legislative bodies to adopt breed-neutral laws, ensure due process protections for owners, encourage responsible pet ownership, focus on the behavior of both dog owners and dogs, repeal any breed-specific provisions. Thank you for your time and consideration of these concerns. I know we all have the best interest of the community in mind, as well as the health and well-being of the animals that provide so much joy and enrichment to our lives. I look forward to a productive discussion on these matters with the hope of enhancing our shelter's ability to serve animals and the community effectively. Sincerely, Tricia Ostrom.
Happen to have 2 more copies of that. We didn't receive a copy. Thank you.
I actually didn't get a copy either, by chance. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, so a couple of comments here. This is definitely a great place to bring up concerns. Okay. I will caveat to that. We meet every 3 months, 4 months, once a quarter, every 3 months.
Okay.
So this is a great place to bring that up. But if you have like a procedural thing or something, it's probably like an Andy or a Mo.
Yeah.
That's probably the best place to do that.
Perfect. Yeah.
So just while you were talking, I think we're going to go in reverse order here just because I wrote some notes. I'm sure some other guys did too. From Dr. Ostrom's note, the breed-specific band, that's completely with the county. We are an advisory board.
Yeah.
Everything we do here is non-binding. This is a great place to bring complaints because we can bring attention to it.
Yeah.
And we'll look at it over and over and over again. We've talked. Yeah, it's or not the county. It's the city.
Yeah.
We've attempted to get them to adopt outside of Saline County. We've attempted multiple things. That's not us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The sick animals being adopted out, essentially. Is that just with Pan Luke, or is that been in ringworm?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I that's part of the reason the doctors were here, to kind of speak to that if they have anything they would like to comment. I mean, I certainly understand that it's unavoidable, when you're housing animals like that. I do feel like, with the instance of the ringworm, that's a difficult thing in that particular instance to treat. But I think just some awareness to the people that are adopting, just more transparency with them about the condition of the pet, and that, that they've been being treated for that. And, we work with the public as well. Sometimes what we hear is not exactly what goes down. So definitely we take things with a grain of salt when we do have, issues with clients, because we understand that sometimes that's not exactly how things transpire. But just a little more transparency, because like I said, with that, and with the Pan Luke case, the instance with that recent outbreak, we had somebody that did adopt it, there's a timeline of when they got exposed to when, the illness develops, and when we see it. They had it a day and it got really sick, and unfortunately, it was just, they were left to put the pet to sleep. I mean, it was it was pretty sick. Kind of giving the timeline, that disease, they can get very sick very quickly. But, in that particular case, I feel for, the public, and kind of, there could have been more that could have been potentially done, especially in that case where they had just adopted it. And then we contacted the shelter about that, and they were told that the owner would be responsible for, whatever they decided. But kind of given the timeline in that situation, I'm like, we could have probably handled that a little differently.
Do you think it'd be like beneficial to, we can't necessarily stop adoptions, especially for Pan Luke, because it is one of those ones that kind of slide through sometimes, just given the nature of it. Mm-hmm. Would it be better to have some sort of form saying, hey, this animal may have Pan Luke, or we know that animals have had Pan Luke, or these kittens, like we've had recent ringworm and kittens that to inform before adoption? Yeah,
and I think that would be definitely reasonable. At least that way, when the people are coming in and they're adopting, they know what they're potentially getting into if they do develop a problem, because then they could also watch for signs.
Do we think that's something that'd be fairly possible? Like, could you guys write up something that says, hey, we've had ringworm move through the shelter, and almost have like a sign at the front desk or something? I mean, I'll leave the details to you guys, but I think that's a pretty reasonable request.
Sure. And we did shut down adoptions. And
as soon as we had a positive test, we shut down.
We shut it
for 14
down.
days.
We won't reopen until the Friday, which is past the time that they requested the 7 days. We're doing 14 days. Everybody that we adopted out that day, that cat came from, through that whole weekend, we called everybody, let them know what was going on, bring the animals in, we will test them for free, multiple tests if we need to. We had one guy that brought his 2 cats in that I kept until Monday. We then sent them to Town and Country to have them redo a test, because we had done tests and we wanted to make sure that their tests were doing what our tests were doing. Those were done there. Everything was negative. The cats went back home. We had one cat that did pass away, and that's what got the ball rolling as far as we're going to shut it down. We're not going to adopt anything out. We're testing everybody that's already in that room and in the ISO room, not taking anything in, not letting anything out. So that was what our process was at that point. And we still won't open adoptions until Friday.
And I'm not sure exactly what the situation was with us telling them they were responsible, because we always try. If it's within a short amount of time of that adoption, we have no
Yeah.
problem taking on that vet bill
Right.
and helping with that, or taking the
I
animal
have
back.
never refused a vet
So-
bill.
Yeah, because that was surprising to me.
We've done it.
when
Right,
was-
We've done it
yeah.
many times.
You know, as far as whatever
Yeah.
we send, that I will always try and make sure that that person is reimbursed. They get reimbursed for their adoption. I don't want them to have a giant vet bill. I mean, it does say in their contract that they're responsible, but that's something that's kind of, it's something that you don't foresee.
Right.
That they could have got it from our clinic. They could have got it from out on the street. You never know where it comes from,
Yeah.
but we don't want somebody, a $800, $900 bill, you know, where we can help like cover it or do, you know, part of it or whatever. And then we can't tell them to euthanize the animal. So that's why we did tell them that it's up to you what you want to
Yeah.
do with the cat.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah,
were
and so-
willing to help with treatment. If they wanted to treat, we were willing to help with that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where maybe we can sit down and you know
Yes.
talk about, like, because you know if we want to be able to support, and so if a client says something that seems not appropriate, we want to be able to say, like, oh, you know, we have a a very transparent relationship with the shelter, and this is what we've been instructed, you know, and
Yeah.
and so I think that would be super
Yes.
helpful. And
on the ringworm thing, ringworm is so.
Yeah.
It's like the cats are fine, and then 3 weeks later they're showing signs of ringworm. So ringworm is really hard to. I mean, you never know when you're going to get
Easy
it.
to treat, though.
It is really.
It is
It's
very
really
easy to
easy to
treat,
treat.
but you never know when you're going to get it.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to get it or what's going to get it. We certainly did not have an outbreak
Right.
at our shelter with that. I don't believe we had an outbreak. We have one foster, and she's not had any issues with ringworm at all.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, and I can't really speak to that because that was in Dr. Ostrom's letter. So
Yeah,
I'm not familiar
I'm just
with
wondering,
the ringworm.
like, if it would be possible to have a placard or something that says, "Hey, we've had reported ringworm, we've had reported not parvo or panleuk or
Panleuk,
something
yeah.
horrible, hopefully,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
you know these type of things, like, hey, just so you know, we have had reported cases of these."
Yeah, and
At the adoption
when we
counter or
opened
something.
Friday, that was one of the things on our list to just make sure everybody knows.
And we just
that-
had a panleuk outbreak.
Right,
Yeah.
we,
Like,
yeah,
we
and
were
so-
pretty
like
sure
we did with
everybody's
the
okay.
Bordetella, when we had the kennel cough,
Yeah.
we did the exact same thing with that. And so our plan is when we open Friday to let people know, hey,
kind of-
we've had some cases.
I would
It's all
go-
over. We had a cat that walked into, or the officer brought it in today, absolutely down and out. He just brought it in as a stray, laying
Yeah.
in somebody's front yard, brought it in. The test, right when I popped it down and it went over, positive.
Yeah.
Right when it went back over, and the cat actually passed away right there on the table. So, I mean, it's out there.
Oh, yeah, it's
It's very
definitely in-
proud, because I was like, where was it at? What was the address? What area? Because we're trying to pinpoint areas.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're getting areas.
Yeah, yeah, and I
would go
think
a
that would
step
be
further, that you also need to send a letter with that person
Yes.
when they adopt it, that so they can take it to the vet and say they said that this has been in here.
Some
so
kind
that-
of
because
pamphlet or
if
something
Yeah.
with
A
information.
normal person will maybe not remember those
Sure,
terms.
yes.
And so if they have a letter that when they go to their vet for the first time, they can say, here, this is what's going on, just can you double check or what have you.
yeah.
And I know a lot of the vets are very, very aware of that's been going around. So that we'll get that going. We'll get that a letter for whoever's adopting cats, and we would do the same thing for the dogs if something happened to break out for dogs like Bordetella or anything like that.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm Dr. Welchel at Town and Country. I've been a veterinarian there for 4 years. I would just like to point out that, as a point of clarification, that there is no validated test for feline panleukopenia.
Right.
So we are using the
Parvo
Parvo
test, yes.
Okay, and so
That's not real, but
it's not great.
Yeah.
I understand what you're doing there, but the likelihood of false positives or false negatives is
Right,
fairly
and we
high.
have
So
had-
that's just something to keep in mind. I want
Yeah.
to make sure everyone's aware
because
of
those
that.
cats
So how
that
do you
came
test
in.
for it? Is it just symptomatic?
Symptomatic, and then you can do a blood test. You can do a CBC to see if they have
White blood
the
cells?
white blood cells are all down. Because that is
down.
what panleukopenia means. It means all the white blood cells are down.
Okay.
So I know it's not reasonable to blood test every single cat that comes through, but I just wanted to make that point of clarification.
Thank you.
Couple other notes I had here. The no kill due to space. Personally, I think you're going to have a bill of sale selling it to the community, and the officers, if you start killing due to space factors, I don't disagree with the sentiment through it, but finding officers who will stay at the shelter and the public outcry of converting from a no-kill to a kill shelter is probably going to be rough.
Yeah, and I think, and like, again, I can't really speak to where Dr. Ostrom was coming from because she's not here. But I do think that, and maybe I can get clarification on that, because, I think that her sentiment is that, if you're not able to provide euthanasias for the community when they are in that situation, because it will negatively affect the percentage.
Are you talking like us euthanize animals?
Yeah.
Right. And then we had, I think part of that is that we do not have a doctor on staff. And we do not honestly have, we used to do euthanasias and it was like always on a Wednesday. We don't have enough staff to do that. We just don't have enough people to be able to block off a Wednesday and have those appointments, because it would only be a certain day because you have to have 2 people. Definitely, it was really hard to do that. And then you've got those 2 people that are consistently doing that. So then you get that compassion fatigue going. Yeah. So it's not something that we don't want to offer the service. It's just, it's really hard for us to offer that service.
Yeah. But I and again, I can't really speak to Dr. Ostrom, but I think that's probably where that sentiment came in, is not that I know that she wasn't insinuating any type of euthanasia due to space, but it was more of like, being no-kill does mean you do have to have that percentage below. And so if you're providing that as a service for the community, that service would negatively affect your percentage, that you're allowed to still remain no-kill. So
can't document the numbers because you can't take animals in. What's happening on the outside of that?
Yeah.
Those are unobtainable numbers.
Yeah.
Just another one here. Communication when the shelter closes due to outbreak. I think it's a pretty reasonable request for when you guys do close to Parvo or something.
Yeah. And we did put on our Facebook page that we were closing for that reason.
Do you think you could give just all the local vets a call?
Definitely.
Call or an email?
Yeah.
Either way, because, like I said, I was actually working up front, and I think it was when there was a closure because of kennel cough, and I don't know if it was I never saw the post, or I don't know if it was how it was worded, but I was helping up front that day, and I had multiple people be like, the shelter is closing, and I was like, no. And so I looked it up and I'm like, no, it looks like there's, a case of kennel cough. And so, they have to be really careful, and kind of, was able to kind of communicate that to the public. But definitely, kind of a heads up that would allow us to, again, show, kind of support for the shelter and be able to clarify some of those things that people, make assumptions about.
The outbreak awareness. I know, are you guys posting stuff on your Facebook? You guys still do that? That's the primary mean about outreach,
right,
correct?
Yes.
Now, is that stuff specifically at the shelter, or what they're seeing in the community too? Like, would you like them? I think that, is the community would be great if there are seeing a trend. I think that's going to be a lot harder to judge. But, like the Panluke, if they're seeing strays from a certain community, then I think, that could definitely bring awareness to like, hey, if you're in this neighborhood, you should really get your cat vaccinated. So I think that posting things, if they're seeing a trend or in a specific area, I think would be great for the community. What do you think the best way to post that? I mean, they post things on Facebook. Is there any other way you would like to see that?
Yeah, I mean, if they emailed us, we would be more than happy to put a flyer up, just even saying like, hey, if you're in this neighborhood, the shelter, because like I said, I definitely want us to be able to kind of help, support the shelter. And so if we're like, hey, the shelter sent this over, I think that would show some, with the public that, there's a lot of communication between the shelter and the clinics. And
do you think that's doable?
Definitely.
That's pretty reasonable?
Could you not
Salina Post.
Could you not put it on Salina Post so the community, a lot of people go to the Salina Post.
So we could do a press
community.
release with the city, and that would go to all of those communications as well.
Is that?
So that's easy.
That sounds like a great idea. are we time syncing you with all these? I mean, how rough is it for you guys to write an email to the Post? Is that something that's a reasonable accommodation?
I think if we just do one press release, we can then send it. It goes out to all of the
It goes out to
social
all the
media.
perfect.
We could send it easily to vets. It's one thing that then just goes out to
So
everybody.
that would be, I mean, reasonable.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that, we run into this all the time. It's certainly, just seasonal somewhat and, different occasions, so.
Sure. But the more communication
Yeah.
would be definitely beneficial
Yeah.
to the public and to you and to us. And so.
Yeah, because, I definitely think, like I said, we want to help, everybody kind of realize that the shelter is here to help and, trying to kind of help support that.
Does any of the other board members have any questions or comments?
I would just like to thank you for bringing up the BSL. It is a very hard.
Yeah. Is there a place that would be good for us to express concern as a
Commissioner meetings.
Okay.
I've been going to them for years. They just don't follow the science. They
Yeah.
want to follow the emotional, oh, well, and I'm not denouncing anybody getting hurt, but in most cases, when they call a dog a pit bull that's attacked somebody, they find out later that it's been misidentified, and they don't announce that part.
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing it up because
Yeah.
it's a very important part of this community. Those
Yes.
are good dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Dr. Ostrom is not here to speak, but I know from her perspective, it certainly puts a strain on space, and, it isn't good for the dogs to be, and regardless of all of the enrichment that you can provide in those situations, just to be kenneled for the length of time that some of the dogs are kenneled is not great for them, physically or mentally.
I have fostered a lot of pit bulls
Yeah.
in my past, and 3 I did for the Salina Animal Shelter, and they're all happy and great families in Nebraska, and not one of them has done anything.
Yeah.
Even the ones that we have sent out, there's been no contact back with you guys that they've attacked anybody or hurt anybody. They're good dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for coming, and hope
Yep.
to see you next meeting as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation, and I appreciate your time. And I don't know if anybody else has anything
I'm
they'd
going
like
to
to
let somebody that's a little calmer talk first.
All right, like I said, I'm Dr. Sydney Walchel. I've been working at Town and Country for about 4 years. I've had a lot of interactions with the shelter. I was actually a volunteer there for a number of years as well prior to vet school. I would just like to speak on the no-kill kind of status and my perspective on that, and kind of with that, I've had discussions with Dr. Ostrom about it as well. No-kill is an amazing standard to try to achieve, and I was, around the shelter at the time that it became kind of their certification. Think that was probably a mistake. It was great, but it was probably a mistake, honestly. No-kill is what we should always strive for, right? But what I think we need to get down to is euthanizing not for space, but for those medical conditions that are long-term are going to be a drain on the resources of the shelter. We'll have pets that have cancer or have a difficult disease to manage, like diabetes or Addison's disease or something like that, and those give a significant strain on the resources of the shelter, both monetarily and just the capacity for care, for the ACOs to be able to treat those animals appropriately. There have been cases that we've gotten from the shelter with a sick animal where it becomes this kind of dance of, we can provide treatment, we can try to get this animal better, we're going to sink a lot of resources into it, and the outcome is probably not going to be what we want it to be. Or it's going to be really long-term management and something that's going to be real difficult to manage, especially in a shelter setting. In those cases, I'll put euthanasia on the table, and I think it's reasonable. Even if I have a client that has, a pet with diabetes or something like that, where they can't financially do it, they can't do the time, they can't manage it appropriately, I don't want that dog going unmanaged, or that cat going unmanaged. That's a terrible quality of life. But I think for the shelter, we get a patient like that, and it's appropriate to consider euthanasia. And in fact, I think it may be warranted, especially if you're turning away other healthy animals for space reasons. I think we need to start making some difficult decisions based on those medical conditions that, yeah, we can treat, but it's a drain on resources, you know. And that's really the euthanizing for space is that, and that's what we're talking about is those medical cases that we can manage, but should we? And I think that's taking that decision out of the hands of the people that are there every day managing it, you know, by making them meet this 90% cutoff or whatever it is for a no-kill shelter. And I know that no-kill certification is going to be difficult, if not impossible, to drop, right? The press behind it is awful. And that's why we got backed into a corner, right? It was great. It was great, but now we don't have the resources. We don't have the places to send the dogs anymore. So I think it's a difficult thing that really needs to be considered and needs to be brought up, you know, that we can't be an open intake shelter. We can't be an open intake municipal shelter where you're supposed to take all these dogs from the county and cats and still maintain this no-kill status. It's one or the other, and we can't have both, and I think that needs to be understood. And it's not ideal. It's not, but we don't live in an ideal world. And so I just urge you to consider that, and that's where I'm coming from on that, is on those medical cases where euthanasia is on the table. It should be in the hands of the people that are seeing it every day to make that decision. And I think we're taking it away from them.
I think if there's a medical reason to put them down, it doesn't count against you, does it?
No, they can put down.
They can.
They can, but it is that balance of, it's a medical treatable thing, and I know you all love animals, and that makes it a difficult decision. But I've been told, hey, I need you to say my top recommendation is euthanasia for me to be able to euthanize, and that's a difficult thing for me to say, you know. In those, hey, we can manage it, but I can't say that the right decision is euthanasia on that. But from what I'm hearing back from them, that's what they need. They need a veterinary recommendation that euthanasia is the top recommendation.
That is what she's explaining is the kicker with that no-kill percentage.
Well, I kind of agree with her because I see these rescues putting thousands of dollars into an animal that takes a year to completely recover, and those funds, in my opinion, could have helped 2,500 more dogs. So to some degree, I agree with you.
On the, I know we don't have any exact numbers, but is there a percentage of the shelter that's dedicated? I mean, that you have a dog with Addison's or horrible diabetes or anything like, do we have any idea on numbers?
I really don't know what those numbers would be.
Mo, do you have any ideas?
We don't have anything.
I think the predominant of the spacing problems, at least for the dog side of it, is court cases and pit bulls, isn't
Correct.
it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yep.
And I agree with Dr. Ostrom on that as well, that the breed-specific legislation is really tying the shelter's hands, and they can't do much about it.
And, you know, we have an amazing population of dogs that are adoptable, but at the moment, just nobody's adopting.
Yeah.
That's what we're running into.
Is there a way for us for the shelter, for that no-kill certification, you have to get the vet's recommendation, though, right? Like, that has to be the
For it
recommendation.
not to go against that
Right.
percentage, I believe, yes.
I think you guys run pretty good percentage, though. Don't you normally 92%, 96%?
We had been. I think right now we're not.
Okay.
Right now we're not. Our
Okay.
numbers are not there.
Gotcha. So I thought last year something was like 96 or 98. So you had a...
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, I don't know what we could do, but thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brandt. I'm also with Town and Country. I've only been here about a year and a half, though. But I just wanted to, because I was the doctor who was on the Panloop cat that they got spayed on Wednesday, adopted on Friday, got sick on Saturday, and I saw them Tuesday. So it was a real quick turnaround. I did call the shelter, and the owner did too, and we got told that they would only pay for the exam and they wouldn't cover euthanasia or treatment cost of any kind. I think I spoke directly to Nick when this happened.
I'm sorry?
I think I spoke to Nick when it happened.
Right.
It was a couple months ago, though. And I just didn't know if there was a specific protocol for that.
Usually people talk to me, and then
Okay.
Andy and I talk it over, or I just make the decision.
Okay.
I don't want somebody to have to.
Yeah, and
That's something that is not their fault. It's not something that, you can foresee.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you can't foresee, but for something like that, I mean, it's just been something that I've always tried to make sure that we help that person as much as possible.
Okay.
I wasn't privy to that conversation, so
I think you were out of office when it happened, because it happened later in the day. Like, I barely got the call in before the phones turned off. But it was just something, I know the owners were really frustrated because they weren't aware that there was an outbreak happening when they adopted the cat, and they also had 4 other cats at home. So they exposed, luckily their cats were vaccinated.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
It was at least 1 to 2 months ago.
Okay.
Because I could find it in our files.
Sure.
We did end up euthanizing because they did have like 4 other cats at home, and by the time I saw the cat, she was very sick. But I know that I saw when they adopted, and I know she was like spayed on Wednesday, adopted on Friday, and was sick on Saturday. And then by the time I got her, we did actually do a full CBC chem, and I did a blood smear and confirmed that she had no white blood cells, so it wasn't a parvo test that we did. But I know the shelter covered the exam fee, but nothing else got covered, so that's why I just wanted some clarification.
Sure.
And I definitely had the owners call, and that's what they got told too.
So we've been in the process of updating our policy and procedure manual, and this is something that we appreciate that recommendation. It's something Mo and I can come up with as a procedure.
Yeah, like I said, and I wanted to be able to communicate well with them too, but I had never been in that situation with the shelter, so I don't think I was able to support you guys as much as I could, because I just didn't really know the protocol at that point.
We try and support, if there's something going on with an animal that we've had and it's sick, we always try to do the best that we can to help somebody out. I mean, it's not always their fault when something happens. It's just things happen, and we want them to be able to keep the animal and have the animal happy and healthy, and that's our biggest goal.
Yep, and I understood not treating at this point because she was so sick, but I just know that the owners were very upset when they left, and they felt unsupported. And that's why I wanted to make sure that I could support them and you guys at the same time. And if you have a protocol and you can send it to us, or even have us call you directly instead of calling the shelter, because that's what I know you were out when it happened that day. So.
And that's something usually me or Andy are going to make the decision.
Yeah.
So that's either one of us is,
Okay.
Usually I'm happy to say, hey, just go ahead and treat it, and we'll figure something out.
Okay, that's good. Like I said, that was something we dealt with, and I know that casts a bad light on the shelter to the public, and I don't want that to happen, but that's why I wanted that communication a little better.
This brings
Sounds
up,
like if you send her a bill, she's going to pay for it.
Yeah.
I think this brings up a good question. When there is a pan-luke or a parvo or some sort of outbreak, does the shelter know ahead of time, or does the shelter not realize there's a pan-luke outbreak until they get a call from a vet?
So I will say that I had already diagnosed multiple ones from the shelter the week before. And I had to euthanize 3 or 4 the week before. These were not adopted. These were directly from the shelter. I confirmed with either CBCs, or some of them we did do the parvo test, which is not ideal, but it's...
So when you were in that situation?
And we told them what was...
Okay, I was going to say, does the shelter, is it some sort of communication like, hey, dude, you just gave me 3 pan-luke cats.
Right.
Yes, and I will say, at least the ones that I euthanized the week before, it was Nick that I was talking to that entire time. I don't know if I communicated directly with Mo at that point, but I did communicate with the shelter.
Okay. Well, the shelter should have known that.
Yeah, and
we were blocking kennels off for 7 days, and sanitizing for 7 days, not putting animals in those same kennels for 7 days to make sure that we weren't spreading it to someone else. And we were wiping bars off, taking off doors, wiping everything down to make sure that we were not further spreading it to someone else.
And I think we might have put a post up by that point. We did put a Facebook post at some point over the summer for our personal clients. We put a Facebook post. I think we did an email blast. We did an email blast to our clients that had cats, being like, hey, this is happening. We recommend you get your vaccines updated. And so it had been going on for a little bit at that point, and the owner that I had come in was unaware of it. And so I think that's what made it even worse is I was like, oh, we've been seeing this frequently, and they were kind of blindsided.
Okay. And that's where, a note or documentation of, hey, we've had ringworm and pan luke in this facility within the last 15 days would have been helpful.
Right. And I didn't know anything about the ringworm. Nobody said anything.
I'm just using that as a
right.
parvo. I mean, whatever has been in the facility in the last 30 days, if you guys could disclose that before and adoption.
We were going on the direction of what we needed to do to make sure that we were disinfecting and everything like that
100%.
After that.
But, perfect. Thank you.
And I would just wanted to add on to that if it would be helpful, even if it's not shelter pets that we're seeing issues with, if we can notify you guys, because, if the community, like if it brings in a stray cat, and it had pan luke, notifying you guys too, or if we have pets that come in with kennel cough that have been, definitely feel like, we could work two ways. Sure. So if we're seeing something, letting you guys know, even if it's not anything you're dealing with, just to give you a heads up. That way if things are coming in. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that we could communicate a little better as well if something comes in that we're seeing.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Matthew, would I be able to say a few words?
We've passed the community comment spot. I'll leave that up to you, Mel.
Well, I just wondered if you had to sign in beforehand.
We're currently in the veterinarian comment section.
I'm not a veterinarian, I'm just a...
We've already passed the community.
We're running short on time.
That's fine. But I will make this comment from the back here. You mentioned Facebook. I don't get the animal shelter Facebook. So you need to reach out further.
Okay.
So, I'll stop there.
Perfect. Any other veterinarian comments?
Yeah. Okay. I might cry during this. I'm very emotional right now. I've been a veterinarian for almost 5 years. I used to work in Liberal, Kansas, in the shelter down in Liberal, Jamie Chermock. The shelter down in Liberal, Kansas was a kill shelter. I would have days where I would go over there and euthanize 60 plus dogs in a day. I'm not opposed to doing that here. I do believe that we need to be a kill shelter. We cannot be an open intake shelter and be no kill. There's just no physical way for that to happen, especially with the BSL in place. And I don't see the BSL leaving anytime soon, no matter how hard we fight for that. Our community is suffering because of the fact that we don't euthanize pets in this shelter. My husband is in LEO and he's had to tell people, I can't take this dog. You can either let it run loose or it's yours now. That's not fair to that pet, and that's not fair to the person that picked that dog up off the side of the road. So I just struggle because the community pets are suffering because we are unwilling to change something in ourselves and in our shelter. If that means that I need to offer my services to come euthanize pets on my day off, I will do it, especially if it's a community thing, because I have people that call all the time that can't afford $175 to euthanize their pet, and that shouldn't be their only option, is to call me and beg me to euthanize their pet for free because they have nowhere else to take them. Not to mention the welfare that I've seen come out of the shelter the last couple months. I've been really concerned about some of those dogs. I have one that was adopted by somebody at our clinic. He came to me with a ruptured eye. That should never have happened. It should never have gotten to the point that his eye ruptured and then they brought him to me. That should have been noted and brought in a long time before that ever happened. And his other eye almost got to that point too. And what are you going to do with a blind dog? Nobody wants that. One of my receptionists was a doll and adopted him, and he has a great life now and no issues, but that wasn't fair to him to have to go through that and lose an eye because we just weren't watching them. And the other one that really hit home for me was this cat that had been spayed. They brought her to me. She was lateral, like minimally responsive. She had pus pouring from her spay incision. At what point do we decide that that's okay to allow to happen? That cat laid in a kennel for days like that. That didn't happen overnight. And it's just frustrating from my perspective because I care so much about all animals that I want to help. And I just feel like I'm not being heard. Every time I bring these concerns to the shelter directly, they ignore me. Like the Pan-Luke thing. How many times do we have to tell you there's Pan-Luke in the community, in the shelter, for you to not do anything? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I just found out I'm pregnant, so that doesn't help. I'm super emotional. I'm
Okay,
not mad.
I would like to speak on the BSL. Our petition only missed for the necessary signatures by 22. We will be back in 2025 and we will get this crap done.
Good, because it needs to go.
Because innocent dogs are being mistreated. No offense to the shelter. You guys can't take them if you don't have room. I get that. But this law has been in effect for too long. People don't educate themselves. They just believe what they hear in the news, and we're going to get it done.
Good. And if I need to go.
I've been doing this since 2014, and I'm too old to quit now.
I love that. But I just, like, I want to help. And if you're not going to take my recommendations as a veterinary professional telling you this is how you take care of a Pan-Luke outbreak, you need to shut things down, you need to pull all the cats out, you need to sanitize it. Like, if you're not going to listen to our recommendations, why try? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I want to help, but they don't listen, and I'm just frustrated. And I want to know how I can better help them get to the point where I'm not seeing these pets that I'm so concerned about all the time. Like the pit bulls that are so underweight that they come into the clinic and it's like they should not be a body condition score out of 2. They've been at the shelter for 8 months. That's not we picked them up off the street. They were in this condition. They're in this condition because they're in the shelter. That's not okay. It's never going to be okay. And I just want to help and I don't know how. And I think
concerned. Starting here is a good part.
So with the medical welfare of some of the pets that I've seen come out of the shelter, I just am really concerned about.
And it's not all the shelter's fault. Losing the volunteers was a big hit.
It was.
It was a horrible hit.
It was. I just want to know how I can help you guys. That's like my whole premise for being here is just help. I need to know what you guys need from us to help you.
Yeah, and I think the communication.
Volunteers, they chased them away.
I'm sorry.
They didn't lose the volunteers. They chased them.
Oh, no, I know, but you knew what I meant.
That needs.
Sir, this isn't citizens forum, please. Thank you.
At the beginning of your comment, you stated you'd be willing to volunteer for a community humane euthanasia thing.
Yes.
Is that something where the shelter could provide the blue juice and utilize her as a veterinary volunteer, and we do it once a month, twice a month, whatever? Is that something that is viable within laws and regulations of the shelter?
So I'm going to stop there, and I'm actually going to ask Jeff, because I asked in terms of the no-kill status, does that need to go to commission? Does that city manager? Because we're just following direction on our end of the shelter. Where do we need to take that if that is a step to go?
Relating to
the no-kill status.
Commissioners.
Commissioners. For direction.
I think we need to, I don't know. I need to probably look at that and talk to the city manager about how we would like me to proceed with that.
We can.
It's not a certification. It's just a operating policy.
We can make a formal request as the board for the city to review it. Can we? I mean, would that do anything?
Yes.
So, that's kind of a separate issue here, though, because if she was willing to do a community humane euthanasia volunteer thing, that wouldn't go against your no-kill. That would simply be the shelter providing the blue juice.
But it goes back to because we are a city
but
facility.
It's still the animal that is in my care.
That would still, but these wouldn't necessarily be in your care. These would be
like people that can't afford to euthanize their sick pets or
It's almost like
pets
a low
that they
cost spay and shelter.
literally like a low cost like euthanasia clinic. Like, I know you can't afford this. Can I help you? Like, I used to do that all the time in Liberal. I get phone calls all the time. I can't afford, the shelter's full. I can't afford to pay the $100 euthanasia fee that you charge. Can you do it at cost or minimal fees?
Because we charged, when we used to do it, we charged.
Yeah.
And it wasn't free, there was a charge to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a viable way for the shelter to...
It's a discussion that we can have.
discuss it, yes, definitely.
A
On
low-cost
Thursday, you
euthanasia
stay and
clinic.
neuter, and on Wednesday, you do something.
Something we can
to
discuss.
euthanize.
Okay.
Because it's frustrating because I'm in a corporate practice, so my hands are tied. I can't offer a free euthanasia to somebody or a low-cost euthanasia to somebody. It's like $175 to walk in the door to have me euthanize your pet, and some people just cannot afford
Well,
that.
I mean, I think that's and if you're willing to do volunteer hours, and we, the city could supply the means, I mean, that could be another way to outreach to the community.
Similar to how your hands are tied, though, so are ours, because we
I
are
getcha.
a city facility and under the municipality, so we have to make sure that all of those conversations are had ahead of time.
I get you, for sure. Yeah, I just...
I think if we can look into it, at least,
Right.
it's a conversation.
Right, and addressing the pit bulls that are skinny, we are aware, we have feeding charts for 90% of those pit bulls that are in there. We have pit bulls that they get to go out twice a day. No. They get to go out for a half hour, in the morning, half hour in the evening. And they are absolutely, some of them are just kennel crazy. It's just not, it's not a good environment for them. We try the very best that we can to make sure that everybody's out and has enrichment and lick pads and, comes out and hangs out with us in the lobby, behind the lobby, and just kind of hang out for half hour, this one, half hour the next one, just so they have some time out. If you would like to come through the shelter and look through the shelter and look at them in their kennel, some of them are
they just spin.
I get you.
And it's we're kind of damned if we do and we're kind of damned if we don't. So until we have some direction of what we need to do or what we're directed to do, we're going to try and take care of everybody. So I mean, we try very hard to make sure that you can't put weight on a dog that just is constantly going and they're getting fed 3 times a day. It's really hard. And then you medicate them. And then you try and get them to a rescue, and then, you have to medicate it, so I won't take it because it has to be medicated. Or, it's shown signs of kennel stress, or we can't take it at that point. Oh, no, we can't take it at all because we're so full. So that's where we're at right now. Those places, like you discussed earlier, that used to take them readily, they're so full. It's not that they won't take them or don't want to take them. They do. I think they are just so full that they're in the same situation that we are. Even with their regular dogs, that they're trying to get. We're trying to get just regular dogs adopted, and it's been just really. No matter what witty bio I put up there, a lot of times they just don't. People just are not adopting right now.
We have almost somewhere between 10 to 15 dogs that we've had up for adoption.
For a long time.
And they're not leaving. Nobody's coming
they're
for them.
Beautiful, wonderful. So. All of the dogs are beautiful and wonderful, and these are just really good dogs, and they're just people just are, if it's a puppy, but if it's anything older or, that's had a history or it's a runner or, those kinds of things, people are just really not adopting at the moment. Cats have been we've been lucky with cats. People are still wanting cats, but dogs right now are just.
They're just leaving. I get that.
So, but that's, we can have a discussion about.
That'd be great.
If it would be possible to get contact information for all the vets that spoke today, I'd like to share those with the rest of the board.
For sure.
So if I could get your guys' contact maybe after or before you guys leave, that'd be great.
For sure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
If I get with you, Melissa.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other veterinary comments?
Hi, I'm Jamie Gray. I just graduated in May, so I've only been practicing for 6 months, so I'm new. But I'm also Town and Country, and my only kind of general comment would be, especially since it sounds like special or not that standard operating procedures are being updated. I would be more than happy to help work with you guys. Using the Association of Shelter Veterinarians guidelines for updates, things like that, kind of going along mainly with unacceptable and must recommendations with that. I think that's something that would be fantastic, especially with updates going on. That would really be my biggest recommendation of kind of guidelines to follow. And I would be more than happy to help do like an audit of the shelter in terms of the guidelines. That would just kind of be my biggest thing. I think that could kind of easily be addressed, and then have a better idea of where deficiencies are in the shelter and kind of things that we can do to kind of help with them.
Sure.
Yeah, I would be more than willing to consult on that.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a
Nice.
time that we could set up, and would you want that communication between you two to possibly score?
I'm gonna holler at Melissa. And, yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I think we all want what's best for the animals, and so I think, you know, kind of working together is what's going to get things done, and I think that would be a great place to start.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other veterinary comments? Okay. Well, I make a motion to approve the agenda approve the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Okay. Approval of the minutes from last meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All approve or all for?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Awesome. Passes. Okay. New business.
We had a state inspection on 8/5 of 24. The complaint was deemed unfounded. There was no non-compliant items were found or identified in this inspection, and we did pass that inspection. Cleared the shelter in August. August was a really slow month for us. Even with Clear the Shelter, we did the Clear the Shelter instead of doing it for just one day. We did it for the whole month. That way we could get more animals out, get more exposure. We advertised it, just kind of went along with the national Clear the Shelter. And we did 17 cats and 30 dogs on that adoption. The Subaru of America adoption we do every October. We did 40 cats and 25 dogs, so we did really, really well. So combine the two of them, it just seemed like we did really well in that 2 months as far as adoptions. Dog adoptions, it just seems like we can't. We clear spots on a Friday and a Saturday, and by Monday those spots are full of either strays or animals that we're bringing in from the county or whatever. So whenever we clear a spot, we just fill it right back up again.
I would say not even a couple days.
Yeah,
I mean, it's usually
the
same day that we've. I mean, by the end of the day, we usually have every kennel
we're trying
full.
to take as many surrenders as we can. As many people bite holds. We're having some bite holds that's tying up a kennel for 10 days, but we have to take those in for public safety. So we are taking those in as well. We're kind of going in as like emergent, what's more emergent at the, if we have to have a bite hold, that dog is a danger to the public. So we're going to take that first before we take a surrender, just because we want to keep public safe. So right now that's what we're kind of looking at for space issues. But we did do well as far as adopting things out for Subaru and for the Clear the Shelter. We did make a little bit of space. We were able to take more things back in.
How many total kennels do you have for specifically dogs?
We have,
I just did. It's around 65.
Yeah, because we have the whole big large dog kennel, then we have the court hold, and then we've got a whole bunch.
We've got 9 temporary kennels in the garage.
9 temporary kennels, and then we've got the 2 front glass things. Those big front glass, and then we have some smaller freestanding kennels that we've set up behind that big wall, so we can put little dogs there. But
and percentage-wise, you have about 15 adoptable dogs. Roughly. I mean, I'm not asking for an exact number right now.
Somewhere around there. I don't know the specifics,
but so you're
but somewhere around
around 50.
Yeah, it's
so
about
45 of your 60 kennels are are on pit bulls and bite holds.
Or cord holds.
Or cord holds.
Yes.
Or some kind of medical, if they're
So on
yeah.
on average, open to the public is 15 kennels for Salina, on average.
On average, yes. And depending on, like what's in the back too.
Yeah.
Because we have to have two ISO kennels that we have to leave open.
So, yeah, 75% of your kennels are held due to city requirements.
Yes.
Can we backtrack a little bit? Why did you get inspected in August?
I'm sorry?
What was
There was a complaint.
What was the complaint?
We don't,
that was animal welfare. Back in August was an animal welfare complaint. We don't know the specifics. The state didn't share with us. The other thing I was going to add is we actually had an inspection again due to a complaint on November 4th, and that one was also unfounded. So.
What the heck?
So the complaints keep going to the state, and the state keeps coming and going through everything with us, and everything is fine.
But they don't tell you what the complaint
We just know the general area
give us
of it.
the general of what they're coming for, like if it's medical sheets or logging things or paperwork or whatever.
Or like we said, animal welfare, that's been one that's happened.
Do they notify you ahead of time that they're coming, or
No,
do they just
do not.
come?
No.
They come, the state comes in, and we have 30 minutes to start walking them through the kennels. So I know one time Mo was gone when they showed up, and she had to get back within that 30 minutes to start the inspection. I am now also on that list, and it's always one of us that are there. So that way we can start the inspection immediately when they show up.
So you don't know they're coming?
We have no idea when they're coming.
That's crazy. Somebody's got too much time on their hands.
Well, I look at it like this. Everything that we pass, it just makes us a better shelter.
That's true.
Good way to look at it.
And that's, I don't care who's turning us in. It doesn't matter. It
just
makes us a better shelter every time we pass. So the last bullet point was Bank of Tesket volunteers came in September. On September 21st and on October 5th, they came in to make dog treats, which is very helpful. The dogs love them, and the public loves to get them. We put them in their adoption kits and things like that, and it's just basically dog biscuits with melted bark on it and sprinkles, and we do it per the season. And Bank of Tesket has always been. They volunteered in May and helped us out in May, and then they stocked us up again in October. So we have Thanksgiving treats. So hopefully maybe somebody can come in and do Christmas treats for us. So we have Christmas treats. And that's all I have.
On new business, I put in a request to put the stuff we
Yeah, it's
tailed here. It's in there?
You can bring it up if you so choose.
Okay.
So if you want
so
to
is
take
this a
it
good
away.
time?
Yep.
Okay. I got a few packets I want to drop off real quick so everybody's got them. Let's see. And I'm just going to go over this information with everybody.
Okay.
There's one for you.
Thank you.
One for
Thank you.
I'll summarize each page. I'll get one for Jeff too.
Yeah. Did the public get an opportunity? Do you have copies for everybody in the public as well?
I got a few copies extra.
Me and Deborah can share.
Okay.
This item was not in the agenda, and so thus it wasn't in the packet. So we didn't have time to review it beforehand either.
Share. If I could get, if people don't want them, if I could get them back, that'd be great. Okay, we talked about the loss of the FSAS group, and we talked about the consequences, what's happened, and we decided to do a little research so we knew. To go over that, the first page, just a cover letter. It's my intent. To start off, I'm not out seeking to hurt anything. I want to help. As a 25-year retired firefighter for the city of Salina, I appreciate everything they did for me. It was a great organization to work for. And part of the reason I got on this committee was because of that, so I could help. I do see that we can do some work here to improve. On the first page, we have the financial totals for the last 5 years. This group raised $170,000 plus dollars. Okay, that went out back to the public, to the veterinarians, to help pay for things. So I broke it down because it's kind of good to know the year cost, so I just divided it by the 5. So $34,000 a year from a volunteer group that donated a bunch of time and money came back to the citizens of Salina and the city of Salina. They covered stuff for the animal shelter, they covered stuff for citizens, and it helped the vets help the citizens out also. Since all this started, they lost volunteers and people weren't working. We've hired at least 4 different positions within the city, 2 full-time, 2 part-time. I averaged out those wages in the pay scale. I don't know their exact pay, but we're looking about $100,000 annually in pay, plus benefits, which is usually about 25%. These are numbers I'm coming up with. That's the average. I believe that's on the low end. So you can add to that $34,000. Not all of it, I don't think, but definitely some of it, of those extra employees, had to be hired because we lost that massive volunteer group. Okay, so if we took half of that'd be $60,000 added to it. So we're looking at around a $90,000 a year number that the citizens in the city lost. That's having to go out every single year. Okay, so we'll go on to the next part. It just shows what the FSAS has done for the animal shelter for the past 15 years. There's many examples there. I'm not going to go through them and read them all. You're welcome to keep that information so you know. Just for the TV, the list is long. Okay? All right. We go to the next page, and this is a letter from the director of the FSAS, the person that was in charge of it. It shows a little bit of the negligence on part of the animal shelter. It shows what they did. It shows her passion for it. She did get attacked by a dog. There's some graphic pictures in there, so if you don't like graphic pictures, just keep scrolling on. And it tells you her perspective of it on the very last page, what she thinks of how it happened and what happened. I'll let you just scroll through those pictures. Of course, I can't read this all during this meeting, but you can keep the papers and read them. With that dog attack, there's a letter in here that talks about how that dog was a known biter, a known vicious animal, and the staff at the shelter was advised of that. There were no signs put on the kennels. Nothing happened. A volunteer took that animal out and was attacked. Okay, the shelter knew about it and they did nothing about it. Okay, another letter from more volunteers are in there explaining it. This is a packet of information, and this packet is designed to help the city figure out how we can improve and how we can get better at this. I'm going to make a motion at the end of it and then discuss it and go. Got a couple of emails from lawyers talking about the waiver they had to sign to be a volunteer at the shelter. Then there's a timeline of events for the last 4 years of what went on with the group at the shelter.
Scott?
Yes.
I am just wondering, because the breadth of this packet is pretty in-depth. There's a lot of information here.
Right.
Should we schedule time to go through this next meeting and have everybody review it, or no?
It's not going to change the motion that gets made.
Okay.
I truly made this packet to help the city review, investigate this process to make it better. Okay? And it's more like reading information, but for me, it's dedicated to the city so they can move forward and make things better. Okay? We can talk about that. We'll discuss it, and then if everybody decides they want to hold off on it, that's fine. But I'm going to continue to go through it, and then let's have a discussion about it. Okay. some more just communication, so you know what happened, what's going on. Okay. After reviewing this, we know this is a problem. We know it's a loss for the city. You're having to spend money when people were volunteering and raising money. I mean, they're just polar opposites. The proposed motion I have is I move that the City of Salina authorizes the release of a public statement addressing the recent loss of volunteer support Friends of the Animal Shelter. The statement should, 1, acknowledge the loss of volunteer support and express gratitude for the past contributions of volunteers. Number 2, explain the impact of this loss on the shelter's operations, including specific challenges, financial impact, and potential consequences. Number 3, call for community support. Encourage residents to volunteer their time, donate, and otherwise support the shelter. Number 4, provide information on how to volunteer or donate, include specific instructions and contact information. Number 5, express optimism for the future. Convey a hopeful message and assure the public that the city is committed to supporting the shelter and will review the mistakes made and correct accordingly. I further move that the statement be released prior to the next scheduled Animal Control Advisory Board meeting through preferred channels, website, the thing you talked about earlier, just one press release hits them all, and social media. Open that up for discussion.
Well, made a motion.
Made a motion. Okay.
If I may.
I was going to say, we don't have the power to force the city to do this. We can recommend.
Yeah, we're recommending.
Yeah. The information we got provided today, staff hasn't had time to review it prior to this meeting, nor did the public have a chance to look at it, which is a requirement for the Kansas Open Meeting Act as well.
Okay.
I believe this could be a potential violation of the Kansas Open Meeting Act where there wasn't a public acknowledgement of it prior to the meeting.
I tried to get it in through email, but it didn't happen. I asked if I could drop a packet off, never received information, never got a response.
Well, even then, the packet had already been released, so it couldn't have made it into the packet.
Okay.
Because we did not receive it in time.
Okay. All right, so.
Should we table this until the next meeting?
To the next meeting and put it on top of the schedule.
If I could continue, just a few points for the board to consider. Our staffing, increase in staffing was more related to the Kansas state law which is the Kansas Pet Animal Care Act, and in compliance with that, for exercising, walking dogs, socializing dogs. And that was our intent with staffing up for dog walker positions and part-time staff and receptionist positions, whether it be customer service related or cleaning related. That's part of the reason why, that's the majority of the reason why we staffed up. And we did add that payroll, and that was authorized by the city commission. It's also authorized within her budget to have those temporary staffing positions as well. Also, the second part of the staffing was just the, continual inspections that we've received, and in keeping up with those standards relating to that Animal Care Act. Thirdly, and this will be my last point, and is the Andrea, who's splitting time within the Parks and Rec Department and is taking on some more responsibilities in the animal shelter, has a responsibility on her shoulders to prop up a volunteerism program. We are not there yet to do such a program, but we are kind of planning for that and preparing for that currently to prop up our own volunteerism program. So some of the items on here, we would not be able to, some of the items on the motion, we would not be able to comply with. So that's a little bit concerning at this point in time. But it is our intention and desire, as I reported 3 months ago at this meeting, that we do have a desire to prop up a volunteerism program, and we'll be working towards that, to put together a plan, to have that plan reviewed and approved by the city manager, and then be able to execute that plan within the shelter.
Okay, you said that the volunteers that walk the dogs twice a day, that didn't fit in, that wasn't meet the state standard that the dogs got exercised? You said you had to hire for those?
It's my understanding a year and a half ago, the volunteers bowed out of walking dogs.
But before that, that met the standard when they did volunteer.
Possibly, I'm not sure. We weren't. Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I'd have to look to Monique to see if that was true.
Well, my point and your point is, the loss of volunteers, and we had to hire people, and you just reaffirmed
We
that.
hired people before the volunteers stepped back.
Right.
Those were hired positions before they stepped back.
But it had already been extremely reduced. Like that before they dissolved, you hired people.
Right.
Right.
We hired because we have to meet that state standard.
Right.
And
Because
we
the volunteers
can't,
weren't there doing
but
it.
we can't rely on the volunteers to do that, because if something were to happen and they didn't come in, we are still the ones having
them.
to get to that state standard,
And
whether
if-
the volunteers are there or not.
If somebody was
Did
sick.
for years, though.
It's semantics at this
Until
point.
it came up.
It is.
Yeah.
And there were a lot more volunteers in previous years than there were in the more recent years.
Right.
So-
That's what we're addressing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I move to table your motion until the next meeting and to enter in this packet for review for the next Animal Advisory Board meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Still in new business. Due to the veterinary comments today, I would like for the Animal Advisory Board, I think it's important for us to do what we can to take these veterinary comments as far as we can. I plan on attending the next council meeting, and I'll bring this up there, but I would like for us to formally advise the city to take a look at the kill status and what that actually entertains. I'm not saying we have to recommend to repeal it. That's not what we're doing here. All I want to do is simply advise them to take a look at it, and that way when I go to the next county or the city commission meeting, I can introduce that and say I have the backing of the advisory board. So I would like to make a motion that we formally advise the city to look into the no-kill status and what that actually means and what that does for the infrastructure of the shelter.
I
Second that.
Yes.
All for?
Aye.
All opposed? So I will be getting with you guys. Oh, it's going to be bad.
Maybe not. Let's be optimistic.
Old business.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
On the breed specific, the BSL, that requires a petition.
It does not
No.
require petition.
Okay, so
They
this-
can repeal it.
This advisory board, maybe we're not all on the same page, but can it be as simple as a recommendation from the
Yep.
advisory
We've
board?
done it once
We've done it.
before, and they voted to keep it.
Yeah, we can recommend things to the city essentially. That's our function, and they don't have to do what we say in the least, unfortunately.
Right.
But like something for the board, they can get 100% signatures on that petition, and it's still a law from the city. It's up to the city.
They're going to put it on a public vote. That's what the petition says. We want to give our community the right to decide what is in the law books.
Yeah.
Breed-specific legislation is nothing but racism for dogs.
Yeah.
And then I should have asked this before, but on the very last page, there was like 5 bullet points on the breed-specific legislation, but there was one that says ensure due process protections for owners. What's the intent of that bullet point, I guess?
I unfortunately can't kind of speak to that because of Dr. Ostrom,
Okay.
But I know that she did cite specifically the ABA. I don't have a copy of her letter. I think I handed it out. But I know that she did cite specifically in there the recommendations from the ABA, and so I know that that's where those bullet points came from.
Do I just read that? I'm not a legal language person, but do I read that as making owners less liable for their pets?
No.
I think it's something that's already accounted for, and they've got the court hold, so it's due process. It's putting them through court in a trial. So I think it's something that's already accounted for under Salina law, but I think she just pulled the whole thing from the Bar Association.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, I apologize, I can't give more clarification on that point, but I know she did cite some specific groups that had, recommended in what they've done in other areas when there's been legislation that was repelled.
Well, it's a great letter. Thank you for bringing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yep, I will make sure Dr. Ostrom knows.
So does anybody else have new business? No, let's move on to old business. Mo, take it away.
State inspection on 4/17 of 2024. Again, we passed that. They didn't find anything that was incompliant. Trap and release program. I don't have numbers for you today. I'm sorry. We are kind of pulling back a little bit.
So 2 months ago when I took over surgery, I actually started working more with our trap and release binder of people that have helped us in the past. And we've had anywhere from 5 to 13-ish somewhere come in almost every Thursday when we had surgery. So we were keeping the program going along with our regular surgeries. But with this pan-Luke outbreak that we had and the quarantine, we have put a hold on our trap and release because we have a feeling that's how it maybe came in with the surgery. So we are actually going to put our trap and release on hold until after the first of the year for right now. But we can definitely get numbers for how many we did this year. We just don't have those.
I can have it in our next packet, definitely. Off-sites, we did have some pretty consistent off-sites at Petco and Atwoods. We've had to kind of pull back on that because we've had some short staffing as far as like we've had some people out for injuries, those kinds of things. So we haven't been doing a lot of off-sites. I plan on hoping to get a bunch going in December with Christmas coming up. I think a lot of people are wanting to, see animals out at Atwoods or Petco. It's fun. They love it. The dogs love to go out there. The ACOs like to go out there. We did the Halloween thing at the field house, and we had our 2 ACOs, one of them dressed up like a cat and the other one dressed up like a dog. So that was a lot of really good public. People really, really like that. So those are things that we would like to start to get back out doing. Just getting a little bit more people out there in the public seeing the dogs and not in just a shelter situation. Sometimes that does help get more exposure of the animal, more people see them. Bank of Teskett, again, had volunteered back in May. And then I did have the little packet for your foster research that Scott had asked for before. I did reach out to as many shelters as I could possibly email, call, just kind of people that I knew that worked at different shelters. I really got only 5 people who were willing to give us feedback. Most people were just so busy, they just didn't have time or they just didn't respond. We've had other times that we've done research with other shelters and things, and we just really didn't get a lot of feedback. I did get 5 shelters that gave us feedback, and I included that packet for you, and things that they were doing and their waivers. I only got the 3 waivers. Those were the 3 that some of them didn't give me waivers. They just gave me just kind of stats and stuff. But the waiver, I think, was one of the biggest things for the friends that they weren't agreeing with that waiver. We don't have control over that waiver. That's something that the city attorney's office has that control over. So moving forward with the new plan for volunteerism, I don't know what that's going to hold.
Is this, when you guys talk volunteers, is your thought process, like the volunteers did so much work, is using one of your personnel that's passionate about that type of thing to run a volunteer group to get them set up and do that one paid position can like benefit you threefold.
So that's ultimately, my new position is the operations manager under Parks and Rec. And I will be doing a volunteer program for all of Parks and Rec, which will include the animal shelter.
Okay.
So it's going to be
fantastic.
Big program that we're doing because we can do things like cleaning up parks during the summer and other options. And so it's going to be a large volunteer program, and that's going to be part of it.
And it'll be like animal specific or city specific, dog.
Yes, there'll be multiple different
animal
portions
volunteers
to it, but it'll be one
to do just
one
animal, right.
Yes,
Yeah.
one volunteer program across Parks and Rec with little subcategories.
Yeah, that's obviously everybody knows and nobody disagrees. That's going to pay off if that gets done, accomplished, and benefit you guys and the shelter. Yeah.
And we will always keep our paid dog walkers. I mean, that's just something that it works well for the shelter. And if we have when we have volunteers, I'm going to say when we have volunteers that come in and they want to walk dogs, that dog's not going to know that he was just out 10 minutes ago. He's going to want to go out. Right, okay, I was out for a half hour, 45 minutes, but hey, this new person wants to take me out too.
Right.
So they're going to go out.
Or if you know they got walked, they can do another task.
Right,
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It just benefits the dogs.
Or spend more time with a particularly hard animal that is very shy, sitting in the kennel with them, giving them treats. There's a place for everybody. If that dog walker is a paid dog walker, or if that's a volunteer, we need everybody. We need everybody to mobilize and help the animals, because that's what's the most important part of it, is to help the animals. And part of, some of those pit bulls that are kind of jumping around in their kennels and kind of kennel crazy, that would help to have that extra several people come in a day and work with that animal, or, take it out for a little bit longer, or just sit in the yard with it, read a book to it. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but that benefits those animals no matter what. Contact.
Not to beat a dead horse, but that's what you had.
Right.
And then we don't have that anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So I saw, and I don't remember where it was, but instead of adopting a dog, they were letting people take dogs home for 3 days on a trial basis. Why can't, and it was a shelter.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that here?
I don't know the legalities of it. That is something that there's a liability of, what if the dog gets lost? What if the dog bites somebody? Those are all those things that we have to look at. I mean, I guess it wouldn't make any difference if they adopted it and took it home in 3 days that something happened. But it's kind of a state kind of strange thing that, unless you're a foster or unless there's a reason for an animal to be out of the shelter for a certain amount of time, we are not.
There are very
indicated.
Specific things that have to be in place before an animal can even leave the shelter.
Right.
Find out where
So,
I saw
see if we
that.
could, and it's something once
And
again
it
we
could
can
be in a
discuss.
state that has different state standards that we have. I mean, it could be somewhere in Missouri.
I'm thinking
Arizona,
it was
Oklahoma.
Colorado when I was up there.
Colorado
or there.
is really weird on there. They have PAFCA, which we're a member of PAFCA, so we can transport animals to Colorado, and you have to go through like the little education things, and their rules are a lot different than our rules here. So their state standards are kind of almost the same, but they do have different things that they can do, and they are
very animal friendly. You can
They
take your
are.
animal anywhere.
Right. Yeah, and there's certain communities in Kansas that are like that too, but they fall under the same state standards that we do. So
So we are over time. Do want to advise you guys that. So are there general announcements?
Pardon me?
Anything? Any general announcements? I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.